Orlando Magic fans, how are we doing? Welcome back to the Win Column. Welcome back to the Win Column. My name's Sam Melhewish. I'm here with my good friend Kevin Tucker. This is the Sixth Man Show, Postgame Live. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Kevin, 115-88 over the Pelicans. How we feeling, my man?
Wow, I'm thrilled. I'm relieved. I'm overjoyed. I'm all the things. It wasn't always pretty. Big lead to start. You let them crawl back in. You pull away at the end, but whatever. At this point, after 5 in a row, I'll take a win any way we can get it. I'm doing good, man.
Absolutely, man. I was going to say, a bunch of people are going to be saying different things. A bunch of people are going to be throwing excuses. Pelicans are, down a bunch of their best players, pretty much all their best players except Brandon Ingram. It's a home game. Man, after that 5-game stretch, I could care less what the excuses are. Let's get a win in the win column. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in a little bit, just kind of what this game means. Why is it important? Why does it matter? Obviously, it matters because we got the dub. But we're going to jump in. Excited to have all you guys here. Excited about the energy. Obviously, everyone's we needed a win. We needed a win after that 5-game streak. We needed a win after Paolo going down. And we're here to celebrate with you guys, spend some time with you guys. The Sixth Man Show Postgame Live is brought to you by our sponsors at Rock'em Socks. As you see in the bottom left of the screen, if you use code MAGIC20 for 20% off of your order at Rock'em. But not just for Magic gear, right? They have a lot of different things. I know that recently I haven't been following them quite as much since the magical 3 Stanley Cup run in 2020 to 2022. But Kevin, you're a Tampa Bay Lightning fan as well, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
I definitely am, yeah.
All right. Well, if you take a look at these, they have quite a stash of Tampa Bay Lightning gear. I mean, look at those Thunderbug socks, man.
Love that.
I mean, the one on the left is more my thing. The one on the right's a little creepy for me, if I'm being honest. That's a little on the weird side. But hey, you got a bunch of different options. If you have not checked out Rock'em's website, go check them out. They have stuff for literally everything. I am a huge Marvel fan. They got Marvel stuff. My wife is a big Gilmore Girls fan. I looked earlier and I'm like, hey, I wonder if they have Gilmore Girls socks. They have Gilmore Girls socks. You'd be shocked at the amount of stuff that they have on this website. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. 20% off if you use code GOMAGIC. Let's go ahead and jump in. I've been seeing the chat kind of, run in so far. We have a super chat to start off from Luis Rosario. I forgot the words. It has been too long. And I'm not going to say the last 3 words of his super chat quite yet. Let me pull it up there. Because you guys can see the last 3 words of that super chat. And it has been, 11 days, Kevin? 10, 11 days. The last time was when Paolo dropped 50 in the win against the Indiana Pacers. A lot has happened since Paolo dropped 50 against the Indiana Pacers. The vibes were high. But, ladies and gentlemen, I say we kick tonight off by playing that song. Let's do it. Come on. We love to hear it, Kevin.
Let's go.
It's been way too long. It's been way too long. Let's go ahead and get into the chat so far. I see a name coming up in the chat quite a bit because he really, really played well in the first half. I know I didn't mention him on the stat line at the bottom of the screen, but Goga was playing great. Obviously, being out Wendell, we needed someone to step up. And having someone on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Kevin, the first half mainly, I know he was kind of, I don't want to say absent in the second half, but he didn't impact the second half nearly as much as he impacted the first. What were your thoughts on Goga tonight?
Goga was great. As I say sometimes on the show, Goga knows what he's doing. He goes out there, knows his job, knows his role. Tonight had a couple razzle-dazzle assists you can add to that too, which was pretty fun. But yeah, ends up with 11 and 9 and 3 assists. 2 blocks, of course, the Goga way. But yeah, I mean, solid, efficient. You know what he's going to bring you. And I was definitely happy with Goga. Again, especially because of New Orleans' lack of necessarily talent when it comes to getting to the rim and those kinds of things. Goga just kind of made sure nothing was really happening there in that first half. It was great.
Oh, absolutely. Nice to see Cole get back. We have from Janine Richmond. That was great. I thought it was ironic that they said, they mentioned, Cole looks back at Gary Harris and is like, man, I'm back. And then he just like botches the free throw with like one of the like worst Cole Anthony missed free throws I've seen in a long time. We have a message from Paul Gonzalez. It says, I'm a newer Magic fan. Is Black underrated? I can answer that question for you. I'm not even going to shoot this one to Kevin. Absolutely, Anthony Black is underrated. Anthony Black, in my opinion, is going to become 2 years ago Jalen Suggs, if that makes sense to everyone, right? Like 2 years ago as Magic fans, we were absolutely, like, we were all on the Jalen Suggs train. We were hype about his performance. We feel like his defensive energy and his defensive ability was absolutely slept on. And I feel like Anthony Black is absolutely going to creep into that conversation of being that caliber player, that level player. So yes, Paul, absolutely, Anthony Black is underrated. We back, baby. Colin Cordero, absolutely, we back. We back in the win column. Much needed victory. Let's go Magic. Ryan Singh, next 2 games should be easy for us, Wizards and Hornets. Hold the roll on the let's it being easy, right? Tonight was a very undermanned Pelicans team, and there were times when great first quarter, great fourth quarter, that second and third quarter was rough. It should not have ever gotten down to a 5-point lead down in the third quarter, but it did. I'm not willing to call any games easy. I'm willing to call games less winnable and more winnable, but I'm not necessarily gonna call any games easy because this roster is absolutely depleted with Paolo on the bench. Cole, 7 rebounds in 12 minutes. Let's talk about Cole for a second. I'm beyond the point where I think that Cole is ever really going to, I don't know. I just don't think he's going to be that like 6th man anymore. Like, I feel like he has kind of gotten pushed because we have seen Anthony Black so far this year really kind of take over that like 6th man coming in, running the offense off the bench. And he's just really been doing a great job with that. And the last couple of games, I know he ended up with kind of a rough stat line throughout the rest of the night, but I have been extremely impressed with what I've seen from Tristan da Silva as well. But all that you need from Cole Anthony now is you don't need 22 points off the bench anymore. You don't need him to be lighting things up anymore. But if you can just have him come in and provide energy and not be a net negative for this team, like that's essentially all that you need, right? You need the spark plug. But I remember early in Cole's career, I don't know if you guys mentioned this on the show or not. But Cole kind of being like a Jordan Clarkson kind of guy, right? To where it's just like, Jordan Clarkson was never going to come in and be a net negative for your team. He was going to come in, he was going to take shots, he was going to hit a majority of his shots, and he was going to add to the score of your team without detracting anything. And that's been the problem so far this year with Cole, is the fact that like he'll come in and more games than not so far this year, he's taking shots when he doesn't need to be taking shots. He's missing a lot of the shots that he's taking. He's forcing things because he's trying to get himself going. Kev, what are your thoughts on Cole, not just tonight, but kind of like how his role is evolving so far in the Magic season so far this year?
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, it's no secret, no surprise. Cole struggled, this season, but Cole's the kind of player, streaky player, that all it might take is one night, and he played well a couple nights ago, played really well tonight. Makes you wonder, does it just take one night for him to, basically get off the mark, as they say, and, find his stride again? And again, he looked super, super good tonight, in the minutes that he was given. Again, credit to him for taking advantage of that. We'll have to wait and see. I'm definitely curious because obviously Jet Howard was kind of given his minutes in the last several games. Now that Cole played well tonight, what happens on Sunday? I guess we'll have to wait and see against the Wizards.
Yeah, absolutely. Solitary Introvert says the defense was much better tonight. I agree. This has been a huge gripe with me personally. Again, we're going to celebrate the win, but defense is playing against this Pelicans team where you can, if you look at overall kind of what the Pelicans were able to do to you, right? I don't even remember this man's first name. Brandon Boston Jr. dropped 26 points on the Orlando Magic tonight. Okay. Jose Alvarado had 21 points. Brandon Ingram finished with only 11, so that's a success right there, right? Whenever he was getting guarded, he kind of got shut down. He was taking tough shots all night. But this has been the Magic's issue so far this year, is guys like Brandon Boston Jr. No discredit. He's an NBA player, right? And NBA players are NBA players for a reason. But you can't have, if you are putting your name behind the defensive side of the ball, you can't have guys like TJ McConnell, Jarris Walker, and Brandon Boston Jr. dropping 20-plus points. You can't have that. And so, yes, defense as a whole, right, played much better. I mean, I look at some of the numbers, right? You have KCP's stat line stands out to me. He had 4 steals tonight. Franz Wagner had 2. Jalen only had 1, but again, similar to last year, Jalen, like he was definitely in the passing lanes. He was forcing a lot of the turnovers more than he was credited for a lot of the turnovers. Not a lot of overall steals, but it just really felt like, and a lot of this you could probably say has to do with the Pelicans not being at their full force right now. But it just didn't feel like they could really get anything going. And all that the Pelicans really had going for them, it wasn't like a unified chemistry-filled offense. It was players getting hot and hitting shots. Like it was like Alvarado hitting some shots, Boston hitting some shots, right? It wasn't necessarily like, oh, we missed a back cut and this. Like the Magic did everything that they could to clog the passing lane. So overall, I mean, obviously, what am I talking about? We held the Pelicans to 88 points. I can't gripe about the defense. We held the Pelicans to 88 points. That's going to do wonders for the net rating this year. Rome says undefeated home stretch coming. We can only hope, right? We're going to talk about this a little bit later when we talk about kind of these next couple of games. But if you look at the rest of November, and I'm planning on talking about this. I'm going to be doing the post-game live on Sunday as well, and I'm planning on bringing this up a little bit. You got to win games over this next stretch of November, guys. Like, it's huge because December, if you guys have not taken a look, if you're watching this right now, take a second to pull up the Magic's December schedule. It is, and I said this before the season, brutal. Like, you thought these last 5 games were tough against, Cleveland or 4 games, I guess, Cleveland and OKC and Dallas and Indy. Like, that is nothing compared to the gauntlet of games that we're going to have to play during December. And if we don't want to be 5, 6, 7, 8 games under 500, especially if Paolo's not coming back in December, you have to win games during this home stretch. You've got to take care of the games against Washington on Sunday, Charlotte on Tuesday, Detroit on the 23rd, Charlotte on the 25th, Chicago on the 27th, Brooklyn, that back-to-back Brooklyn game on the 29th and the 1st of December. You got to take care of those games if you don't want to be slipping anymore in the standings. Seeing the 3 and Ds create an ISO is a bit important because Paolo is not dragging 2 or 3 defenders. Very, very true. Duval losing streak over. Let's go. Everett says needed this. Luke B, KCP's defense is so good. Yes, he is. He has been, I'll say it, he's still been a net positive for this team. Like, he hasn't been hitting his shots, and what he adds to this team, he adds so much to this team defensively that he could be missing the majority of his shots, and he's still adding so much to this team. Seth Berry says, is it just me, or is AB below average on offense in every quarter besides the 4th? I would disagree with this. I feel like he takes it to the next level in the 4th. I feel like I could definitely see a little bit more driving from him in the first 3 quarters because it's like he's one of the best finishers on the team, which we'll talk about points in the paint here in a second. And I'm like, it's really tough. Like, even in some of the games we've played against guys, teams that do have shot blockers in the paint, I see AB driving and he's still finishing. And then a lot of times I just see him and he's just so hesitant. And I'm like, maybe that's him still kind of growing into his role with the team and still trying to gain a little bit of confidence. But I would definitely love to see him be a little bit more aggressive because when he's making the right decisions with the passes he's making. He's knows when and when not to take the ball to the basket. And you definitely want to see a little bit more aggression out of him. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, Mosley talked about that post-game. It was Monday's game. Wednesday, I don't remember. One of the games this week, post-game, yeah, Mosley was asked about AB. Specifically was asked, hey, when he's driving to the rim, is that what you want to see from him? And he's like, yes. That's literally what he said. Yes, that's what we want to see from him. We want him to be super aggressive. And again, I'm not exactly sure why that kind of comes and goes in waves, as far as that aggression and that confidence or whatever it is to be able to get to the rim. But when he does it, by and large, it's pretty dang good. He's very good at finishing around the rim. And so I'd love to see him be more aggressive for sure.
Absolutely. We have a couple super chats that we want to get to. Michael Martin, Boogie Nights. Yeah. Kind of disappointed with the second, third, and fourth quarters with Franz. You want to talk about AB kind of being below average offensively in every quarter but the fourth. Franz Wagner was having his way with the Pelicans in the first quarter, and then all of a sudden, and then every other shot really he took in the second, third, and fourth quarter was going down for him. And then I was kind of surprised. I was like, why is, Franz dropped, 17, 19 points in the first quarter, Kev? He had a crazy first quarter, and then he finished with 27. So I definitely feel like even with the lack of shot blockers, again, it's Franz realizing it's like, hey, Paolo's not on this team right now. I think he's trying to figure out what exactly taking that next step and becoming the number one option looks like for him. And if we can have more of that first quarter Franz moving forward, then I definitely, love what that's going to entail. Nick Monks, I think that they turn up versus us, hit hard shots. Yeah, agree. But again, you'd like to see that, if we hang our hat on the defensive side of the ball, that the better players are the ones that are beating us, not the role players. And maybe we're so focused on not allowing the better players to beat us that we take our focus off of the role players. Maybe that's what we see happening. But yeah, definitely agree that a lot of guys, they go in role players and they know that Suggs, KCP, Isaac are going to be putting pressure on Brandon Ingram, right, on the star players. And so they're like, okay, well, if we want to have a shot tonight, we need to step up and do a little bit better. We have a little bit of a sad super chat to talk about here for a second from Daniel Barry. It says, the first game in Orlando Magic history after the passing of original season ticket holder Dan Barry, who passed away yesterday morning. Big win. Let's dedicate to his memory. My dad took me to every game for the first decade of Magic basketball. Daniel, we are extremely sorry about that. For a $49.99 super chat, by the way, from Daniel. We appreciate that. We're sorry to hear about that. It's definitely tough, especially when it is a member of a community, and especially when it's been such a long-standing member of the community. And this community has been through its ups and downs, and the supporters that are there from day one and stick around since day one are some of the most loyal ones for sure. And those are definitely losses that can be felt throughout the community as a whole.
Yeah, I just gotta add here, man. Daniel, I'm definitely sorry for your loss, man. I feel you. That was my growing up. My dad took me to Magic games as well, and I can't go with him either anymore. And so next time you're at a Magic, well, you went tonight, but every Magic game you go with him, you'll be thinking about him just like I think about mine. And so you definitely have our condolences, our prayers, man. Thank you for that super chat. That's really generous. And definitely I'm glad we got the win tonight in his honor, in his memory, and thanks for sharing that with us tonight. That's a great story.
Absolutely. The Six-Man Show Orlando Magic podcast, I believe this is Jonathan making this comment, 20% off at Rockham with code MAGIC20. Again, a reminder, we brought that up at the top of the show. Icarus Rat says, you say Goga knows his role, Kev, but his role same time last year was to bridge us and send us on a 9-game winning streak. I want to get your thoughts on this. I agreed with every decision that this front office made this offseason, except one. And it wasn't even the offseason, because I believe it happened, or was it during the preseason that the Wendell extension was announced? I didn't get it. I didn't get what Wendell had done consistency-wise and even play-wise when he was healthy to warrant such an extension. I think you could make the argument that it had far more to do with team chemistry than it did Wendell himself. But I think that this front, like this starting lineup, especially because we've seen Wendell be atrocious at spacing the floor this season, I just really think that Goga does more for this starting lineup right now than Wendell does. I know there's been a lot of comments in the comments tonight talking about, Goga as locking up the starting role. I think that we were saying the same thing last year when Wendell was out. It was like, oh, well, Goga starting center, Goga starting center, Goga starting center. But for whatever reason, Wendell struggles a little bit with interior defense. That can't be denied. And Goga is tremendous at interior defense. He also looks to pass, and I don't know, Kev, like what are your thoughts on Goga potentially having an increased role even when Wendell comes back so far this year?
Yeah, it's hard because, you look at numbers and things, and there's a certain line kind of in the NBA. Like when you pay a guy a certain amount of money, you don't bring him off the bench, right? And so I don't know if Wendell's to that line yet, but, he's my thing with Wendell, I think he's definitely got the talent. The durability is obviously the question. And then when he's not 100%, he's not obviously the same player. And so we saw in the first 3 games this year, he was 100%. And while he did shoot the ball horribly, who hasn't on this team, but everything else we saw, he was super athletic. He was crashing the boards like we hadn't seen all last year. And so I was pretty happy with Wendell. But then, you fast forward to now, and once again, the durability is a question mark, and how long will he be out? Who knows? Um, I don't know. It's tough, and he's still pretty young. But yeah, you can't complain with what Go is bringing you. And obviously, you can't complain on a night like tonight where you hold a team to 88 points and you get the win. And so it's definitely a question mark. And ultimately, for me, it's just about durability with Wendell. And I guess, once again, just remains to be seen. But so far, the durability has always been an issue for him.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I think that it's just really tough because you look at that and, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong about this, but the beginning of the season was the first time that Goga has missed like multiple games in a row since being on the Magic. Now, granted, it's really easy to stay healthy when you're averaging 12 minutes a game off the bench as opposed to the 28 to 30 that we ask Wendell to play. But I don't know. It's definitely something to look at moving forward. We're not going to talk a ton about it tonight. I think that you will see more moving forward when Wendell is back. How Goga plays in his absence. And it's not about how much credit we put into it. It's not about how much it means to us. It's about how much the front office and Jamal sees, right? And if he thinks that Goga is the best option moving forward, then I trust Jamal that he's going to make that call. Luis Rosario made a comment that I want to talk about for a second. I was so high. Kevin, you were not at the dinner that Maddie, Ben, and Jonathan and I went to prior to the season to talk over kind of the post-game lives and whatnot. I made a comment. We kind of all talked about like our hot takes. And I said that if Tristan da Silva gets playing time for the Orlando Magic, which was a big if, but it's starting to look a little bit more likely, that he would finish top 3 in Rookie of the Year voting. 2 reasons. One, he's basically a mini Franz. Like everything. Like even, my wife and I were watching the game and she was like, I thought that was Franz. And I was like, it basically is. Like his mannerisms, the way he plays, the way he drives, the way he looks, skin tone, right? It's like, it's everything about him is basically like he's Franz Jr., right? The only thing that's going to be holding him back is playing time because we were like, oh, well, this team's so deep. There's no way Tristan gets any playing time. But then also you look at the weakness of this class. Like this was not a good rookie class. Like obviously he's not going to be getting it last year with Vic, but if there was ever a year for a 19th pick to come out of nowhere and win people over and get Rookie of the Year votes, this was, this is the year for that to happen. And he obviously finished. He started with 7 points, started strong, and then really didn't do much. Missed some open threes over the next couple minutes of the game, and especially in the second half. But what did you think about Tristan, not just tonight, but the last couple games since he's been getting a little bit of run?
Yeah, super happy with him. I said at the beginning, before all this happened, and most people, talent scouts and everything, evaluators said that Tristan probably has one of, if not the highest floors of this draft class, right? Like expected to just be able to come in and contribute right away. And we've seen that from him. I think the defense has been better than I even expected. I expect pretty good, but he's been better than I expected. But then outside of that, right now, he knows his role. He's a good role player. Top 3 feels like a stretch to me just because he doesn't really have that kind of role, Like if you think about some of the guys at the top of this class, even though it is weak, they have just such elevated roles because they're on such bad teams. Top 3 feels like a stretch. Top 10 feels like a lock. So I'm somewhere in that, upper range, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, obviously super happy with him and I'm glad he's found a role pretty quickly. Again, once people are healthy, where does he fall? Is he still on that second unit or not? We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, super happy with Tristan.
Absolutely. 74 points in the paint. It was significant enough for me to put it on the ticker on the bottom, right? Franz, Mo, and then 74 points in the paint. Tonight, you look at this team, right? And the Magic finished tonight 8 of 32 from 3. Okay, that's 25% for all of you non-math nerds out there. That's a rough number. The 3-point shooting struggles for this team continue. They continue to be a challenge. And in the second and third quarter, I mentioned at the beginning of the night, first quarter, fourth quarter, great. Second and third quarters, not so much. And I'm not so convinced that it's not as easy as when the Magic are settling for 3-point shots, the other team starts going on a run. And then when the Magic are getting into the paint, even when there are shot blockers present, because correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but their 3-point shots don't seem to be get into the paint and kick out most of the time. It seems to be creating from the outside and staying on the outside, right? So it's not collapsing the defense and then kicking it back out from 3. It's, just kind of, ISO and then Jalen taking a shot, or Franz is on the, top right wing and then he passes it to Jalen and he shoots it from 47 feet or however long his average 3-point shot has been so far this year, which, hey, it worked the first couple games of the season, so I can't really talk down about it. But 74 points in the paint, I think this team's got to drive. You have so many good finishers on this team. You look at Paolo, obviously he's out, tremendous finisher. Franz, in my opinion, is one of the best finishers in the NBA. Like some of his finishes off the glass, his hook shots, like he has one of the best for a non-center, probably one of the best 10 feet and in games in the NBA. And I think he needs to use that more often rather than settling for outside shots. Anthony Black is turning into a tremendous finisher. Jalen's a tremendous finisher. He's really getting that kind of stop, pivot, 10, 11, 12-foot kind of fadeaway jumper in his bag. I think this team needs to drive more, and I want to see this team. It happened a lot tonight because there was a lack of shot blockers, but when we play our next game against the team that does have shot blockers, I want to keep seeing this happen because I'm not so convinced that even with shot blockers, we don't have players that are capable of finishing over top of some of these shot blockers. Comment from Michael Martin, Reece Shea is likely Rookie of the Year, dropped 33 the other day. Again, it's not going to take much, in my opinion, for someone to win Rookie of the Year this year.
Yeah.
Just because a weak class. But I mean, if you didn't actually go and watch that Reece Shea game, I think he was 6 of 10 from 3. He was 3-level scoring the other night. So if you didn't take a look at pull up after this, of course, go over and look up his highlights from that game the other night because it was impressive. And I think it's going to open a lot of eyes in terms of what he's actually capable of doing. But we're not an Atlanta Hawks podcast. We're not going to keep talking about that. We wouldn't see De Silva with Paolo playing. Really nice to get him a chance. I think that's going to be something, again, I mentioned on socials the other day that I think that there's going to be a lot of good things that come from this Paolo injury. I think forcing Franz into a position where he has to be the number one option and he has to be aggressive and he has to figure out what this team looks like with him on his back is going to free Paolo up even when he gets back. I think not being able to have Paolo bail you out every possession and oh, shoot, we only have 8 seconds left on the shot clock. Paolo, do something. Or, hey, the whole offense is struggling. Paolo, do something, right? We don't have him right now. So we're having to figure out those struggles, not while he's on the court, but with him off the court. And then hopefully that makes the team better. But I completely agree, K-Well, that, having Paolo out is helping Tristan get minutes that he might not otherwise have gotten if Paolo still wouldn't have been on the court. Last comment we're going to go to before we go to the box score for tonight. Artos says, Mose is doing a good job finding creative ways to get looks at the rim, but at some point we're going to need to be able to punish those kinds of defensive coverages. It's a good point. It's something worth talking about. The three-point shooting, with every passing game, the front office's perspective of the three-point development will come from within is looking worse and worse, if I'm being honest, because you signed KCP, he's struggling. There's going to be some positive regression there. Just his career numbers from 3 tell you that. But I don't know. It's not looking great. It's not looking encouraging. And we'll definitely have to see what happens in these next couple of weeks. We're going to go ahead and go over to the box score, Kev, and talk about a couple of things that stood out. We've already mentioned a couple aspects of the box score here. Let me go ahead and pull this up. I apologize. I am getting used to this.
Crushing it, by the way. Chat, round of applause for Sam, by the way. Flying the plane tonight and killing it.
I appreciate it, my guy. Thank you very much. Here we go. Box score for tonight. By the way, this is a totally random question. Do you have any idea how they organize the box score on NBA.com, or is it literally the most random thing in the world? Because I know it's starters up top, but...
Right. Yeah, so it starters up top, and then typically it's actually in this exact position order. So small forward, power forward, center, shooting guard, point guard. For example, when Powell is healthy, Franz is always the first player because he's considered the small forward because Powell is the 4. So, this is the exact order every single time I've pulled it up, at least.
All right, there you go. We're all learning things. Okay, Tristan obviously struggled, right? He had a plus-minus of 10, which was good. He wasn't, again, you aren't going to see many negatives, net negatives on this team tonight. But 3 of 11 from the field. I take more from this, the fact that he's not scared to shoot. I appreciate that from him. I appreciate the fact that we've seen nights where he is taking and hitting shots. We've seen nights like tonight where he isn't. But the fact that he's coming in and he is not scared to shoot the ball, that says more about him for what I'm looking for from Tristan this year than how many of those shots he's making, right? Franz, great night. Only thing is, I'd like to see when you're going that well, I'd like to see a few more than 18 shot attempts. Played 32 minutes, barely played the fourth quarter, if at all, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think we saw him at all in the fourth quarter. 9 of 18 from the field, 2 of 5 from 3. Again, the 3-point shot isn't looking like he's turning into a 50-point 3-point shooter, but we asked him to kind of positively regress back to the mean where he was his first couple of years, and I feel like he's doing that. 7 of 8 from the line. Goga played great. You got these 3 assists from Goga, but he had 11 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, 2 blocks. Again, you see kind of that, the all-around game from Goga, and I think that he fits really, really well within what the starting lineup is doing. And I think that we're overselling the need for a stretch 5, if I'm being honest. I think that we just need other people, not named our center, to hit shots. KCP, again, struggled a little bit from the field. Jalen really struggled from the field. You don't want to see Jalen and KCP with a combined 1 of 10 from 3, but that's the case. They both had 7 points. But again, with Jalen and KCP, reminder, box score, in my opinion, the 2 players that I care the least about in terms of the box score is KCP and Jalen Suggs, because there was plenty of nights over the last couple of years where Jalen had horrendous box scores. But then it's like people are like, oh, Jalen had a terrible night tonight. No, he didn't. You just didn't actually watch the game. Anthony Black played great. Kind of another individual that I don't think his box score really tells us the most about his game. Obviously finished with 11 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 of 6 from the field, 3 of 4 from the free throw line. But just an overall great game. And again, it's more about the context in which he is gathering these stats as opposed to necessarily the stats themselves. Anthony Black, for such a young player, I feel like has this tendency to feel when his team needs him to get a basket. And I don't know if anyone else has noticed that, but it's kind of like we mentioned the fourth quarter thing earlier. So a lot of times it's like, hey, it's the fourth quarter. This team really needs a bucket. But I'm kind of looking at that and I'm like, okay, yeah, but you're saying, hey, I can get to the basket when I need to. Do that more throughout the rest of the game. I wouldn't mind seeing Black when he's out on the floor, especially with Paolo out, taking some more shots, especially if they're at the rim, because I feel like he can make them. Jonathan Isaac went out. Again, anytime you see Jonathan kind of go down hard, he obviously had like the push-ups in the free throw lane. You're like, okay, well, he's fine. And then camera pans to him late third quarter, and we see that he's on the bench, questionable to return with a hamstring issue. Anytime Jonathan Isaac and an injury are mentioned in the same sentence, you got to get concerned. And I don't want to say assume the worst, but essentially assume the worst. And you're like, oh, Jonathan Isaac went down with an injury tonight. He was questionable to return. We're going to see him approximately February 21st. So look forward to that, guys. Gary Harris, 1 of 2 from 3. Had one of the worst 3-point misses I've seen from this team all year, which is saying something in the first half, but then he turned right back around, wasn't afraid to hit the next one that he took, which was great. Got fouled on a 3. They mentioned on the broadcast that this might have been his first free throws of the entire season. I don't know if that was the case, but it definitely felt like it was, because he's either shooting threes or not doing anything at all, and I don't feel like he's gone to the free throw line at all this year. Mo, great job tonight. We talked about how Mo and Cole Anthony kind of fit in the same vein sometimes, both positively and negatively, in that sometimes there's a little bit of forcing, but in my personal opinion, I would take Mo's version of forcing his shot as opposed to Cole's version of forcing his shot, because with Mo, even against some of the best defenders, when he's hitting those spin moves in the paint and he's hitting those fall away shots, I think that those are inherently higher percentage shots for him than what Cole comes in and tries to do. But I definitely love, when Mo's going, and one of the reasons why you're okay with getting Mo in the game and then having him take a couple of shots right when he gets into the game is because nights like this can happen, where when Mo gets in the game, he starts making a couple of shots and you're like, oh, okay, I'm just going to sit back and kind of watch this, because every time Mo touches the ball, he's going to do something. He's going to hit crazy spin moves. He's going to hit fadeaways in the paint. He's going to piss off every member of the other team who has ever existed and their children. And then all of a sudden, he's going to be booed for the next 5 years, because Mo Wagner makes people mad for one game and then they hate him for the rest of eternity. And he's the type of player similar to, for any hockey fans, we've mentioned hockey tonight on the Postgame Live twice, but Brad Marchand for the Boston Bruins, who I despise with everything in my being. But I am fully aware that if Brad Marchand Lord forbid, was ever a Tampa Bay Lightning, I would love it. And I would love what he does to the other team. And Mo Wagner is our Brad Marchand. My best friend Eli would be so proud of me for making that reference. He's unfortunately a Bruins fan. May he rest in peace. He's not dead. I just don't talk to him. And Cole Anthony, again, great night, doing pretty solid. And then Jet Howard, Caleb Houston, Corey Joseph, coming off the bench, and just garbage time, right? Nothing really there. Any thoughts on the box score, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, I echo what you said earlier about Franz. Loved his first quarter, and honestly, credit to him because he kind of lifted the team a little bit when we needed it. Obviously coming off the 5 losses, but even the beginning of the game, like those first couple minutes, we couldn't hit a shot. Like KCP took the first shot of the night, missed it. There were a couple other shots after that, and it was like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
And then Franz kind of took over for the rest of that quarter and kind of lifted the mood essentially. So give him credit, but like you said, it kind of dropped off the rest of the way. Jalen Suggs with 5 turnovers sticks out to me. Again, he's had a couple really high. I don't remember if it was Wednesday in Indiana or Monday. I can't remember which one, but he had a ton of turnovers already this week, and so to have another 5 turnover game isn't great. So that stands out to me. But yeah, like you said, 1 of 10 for the 2 guards there from 3. That's just never going to be good enough. But yeah, those are a couple things that stand out to me.
For sure. Going back to Daniel Barry real quick, he says, love the show. These dudes make a big difference in our community. I greatly appreciate the love, Magic fam. My dad was an OG. So happy for tonight's home win. Man, we're happy about the home win for you.
Yeah.
Man, talking about this just for a second. This is kind of a random comment, but like sports has a way of being like therapeutic, right? And what's great and the same thing that sucks about sports can be the same thing that's really incredible about it. In that it really helps you kind of when you need that break from reality, right? Like you've had a crappy week, and even win or loss, I think that, a team can still provide that kind of therapeutic outlet for you. And more than just the game, Daniel, I completely agree about this community. Like the amount of times last year when I just had a really rough day, and win or loss, it didn't matter if the team won, didn't matter if the team lost. I'd hop on these post-game lives and just talk about something, because I think that the way that we're built as people, community is a powerful thing. And I think that talking about something that we are all have in common, talking about something that we all love, something that we all care about, win, lose, we're all Magic diehards. We don't all agree on everything, especially our Magic takes. We don't always agree on everything, right? But it's nothing but love, Daniel. We appreciate the comment. We appreciate that we can provide an outlet for you to, just celebrate in your Magic fandom and especially, honor his memory tonight with the win. We're going to go over here and look at some of the numbers right here. Again, first quarter, third quarter, or first quarter, fourth quarter, my apologies. You score a combined 67 points. So you outscore the Pelicans between the first and the fourth, 67 to 39. Is a blowout. Right. And then I think it's a 1 point difference, like a negative 1 point difference. Like they outscore you by 1 in the second and third quarter combined. Kind of echoing what Jonathan mentioned a couple of podcasts ago. He said, like, I don't think we've seen a complete effort from this team since opening night against the Heat. And even then, it wasn't a full 4-quarter effort. When this team has everything clicking and everything working, I don't know if it means like be a little less stingy and instead of putting all your effort into 2 quarters, like maybe be a little less defensively stingy and spread the energy across 4 quarters. Like, I don't know. I know that's not technically how it works, but like whatever it takes, man, like it's just really frustrating seeing what this team is capable of doing, in terms of what they're capable of doing offensively, what they're capable of doing defensively. And then you see those stretches where it's like they can't get a stop to save their lives. There's these players like Boston, dropping 26 points on you, right? And it's just like, why are we leaving him open for another 3? Why did we go under that screen there? Why was there so little energy on that play? And then you see the rest of the game, it's just like, you feel like that one stretch in the first quarter where, we had like 3 straight steals on 3 straight possessions to start the games. Like that's what this team's capable of doing. But I feel like we only see the fullest version of what the team is capable of doing like 30 to 40% of the time. And if we can figure out a way to put that together, I think that'd be great. The 2 stats that stand out to me here on the bottom is 74 points in the paint, 26 fast break points, 27 biggest lead, 56 points off the bench, right? It's across the board. It was a thorough beating of the Pelicans tonight, right? It wasn't
Yeah.
like we just squeaked one by. And if you take those second and third quarters out, the first and fourth quarter were objectively some of the best basketball we've seen this Magic team play, definitely in Paolo's absence. Like, I think that the first quarter and the fourth quarter tonight were the best basketball that we have played since Paolo went out. I think that home cooking definitely helps a little bit with that. But just seeing more of this and seeing that this is what this team is capable of doing, even with your star player out, I think that's extremely encouraging, and I would definitely love to see a little bit more of that moving forward. So, a couple more comments we want to get to here.
We got
Mo
a
is
super
the
chat
man
also
right
while we were away too. So
Oh, we did. Yes, we
Yeah.
did. Also from Nick Monks. Continue to trust our 3-point work is not working. No, it's not. All right. We mentioned that. We mentioned at the beginning of the year, the 3-point development will come from within. Is it? Like, it hasn't so far. I don't necessarily think that it will. But we'll see. And you can't say that they didn't address it at all, but you also can't say signing one guy is like doesn't address the fact that we've been one of the worst. Didn't someone say something about like we've been literally the worst 3-point shooting team in the NBA over the last 10 years or something like that?
That's right. Yeah.
That's you can't just sign one player and then be like, "Hey guys, look. See, you said address the 3-point shooting. We signed one guy. Isn't it great?" Right? Because then you have stretches of 10 games where, he couldn't hit water if he fell out of the boat, and you're just like, "Okay, well, what good did this really do? What did this actually accomplish?" Because players get streaky. So if he gets streaky, he may win us a couple of games, but one player isn't necessarily going to do much to boost the overall 3-point shooting ability of this team. Interesting question for potentially discussion. I think I'll hand this over to you, Kev, to give your thoughts. Does AB make All-Star Weekend for the rookies' second year's game? I say yes. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. Like you said, I mean, not this rookie class. This rookie class is really bad, but last rookie class was pretty good, and so it does make it pretty difficult. But I think he can sneak in there. Like, he needs to be consistent, right? Obviously, he's had some ups and downs this week, but as long as he's consistent, from now till January or so, I think it's possible. Yeah, I'll say he gets in there for sure.
I like it. I agree. A little bit of a hot take here. I don't know, hot take, but interesting take. Magic would have 2 number ones by now if they developed Franz the way they did with P5. Franz got sacrificed for P5 and now gets the hate for it. I don't disagree. I'm sure if I had a little bit more time to think about it, as opposed to just reading it and then having to react right off rip, I definitely agree that kind of Franz was never supposed to be the number one guy, right? Like, it takes a lot for us to remember that he wasn't even the highest of our 2 picks that year, right? Like, Jalen was 5, Franz was 8. He was supposed to be kind of the guy that we brought in, and like Jalen was supposed to be kind of like the guy, right? So I don't know if Franz was ever drafted with the intention of developing him to be a number one kind of talent. He's just kind of turned into that in his time with the team. Whereas when you draft a player number 1 overall, you are drafting him and developing him as such, as a number 1 overall pick and a number 1 overall player. So I don't necessarily think that that's fair to the front office. I think that they found a little bit of a diamond in the rough. I, to this day, am kind of convinced that I don't even know if the front office knew what they were getting in Franz when they drafted Franz. Because if, you could make the argument that if they knew what they were getting in Franz when they drafted Franz, then they would have picked him 5th and then picked Jalen 8th. And they didn't. Well, if you pick Franz 5th, Jalen probably doesn't fall to 8th in that draft. I don't remember who picked 6th and 7th, but odds are Jalen was supposed to go 4th when Scotty went, and that's why he fell to us. Mo was eaten tonight. He knew they were weak in the paint and took advantage. Absolutely. You'd love to see his little brother taking a little bit more of a cue from him in that regard, if I'm being honest. Tony says, just play disciplined ball. I think there's more validity to this comment than we want to agree. When the Magic are playing their brand of basketball, even without Paolo, they're a tough team to beat. They're pesky. They annoy people. They get in the passing lanes. They make life difficult for you. Certainly not on the defensive end, but on the offensive end, they make it difficult for you to function the way that they make it tough for you to execute your game plan, I think is what I'm trying to say. And anytime you can do that, right, as we've seen, even with good defensive teams, if you can frustrate a team offensively, then it impacts them on the defensive side of the ball. And that's why the last 4 games prior to tonight have been such a struggle for us, is because we are, our offense can't get going. And so when your, shots aren't falling, it demoralizes you and it impacts you defensively a lot of times. And I think that that's what we're capable of doing to other teams. And if we just play disciplined ball and we play our brand of Magic basketball, then I think, there's very few games on the schedule that I don't see us winning. Chris says, "Go Sam." Appreciate it. A lot of fun. Love being a part of these things. Couple of comments about some other games going on around the league that we are going to get to here in a second. A couple things about some garbage time minutes. Another comment from Chris says, "They're learning how to live without Paolo. Indian tonight show they might be turning the corner. I'm being extremely patient right now." We can't look at this team and what it did in that 4-game stretch right after losing Paolo and have that be the expectation for this team moving forward. Tonight and against Indiana were a lot more what I expect from this team. You have to understand that everything that could have possibly gone wrong with losing Paolo all happened at once, right? You lose an extremely demoralizing game against Chicago. You find out that Paolo injured himself, and then you find out, you're like, oh man, everyone's getting hyped because we have this big game against Cleveland coming up, ESPN, nationally broadcasted game. We get our butts whooped on a nationally broadcast game in our first game without Paolo, and then you don't even have the opportunity to go home and figure out what you're going to do. You're still on the road because the Chicago game was the first game of this 5-game road trip. You don't have time to sit in the training facility and run through practices and run tape the way that you do when you're at home. Yes, they still do that on the road, but it just isn't the same. It doesn't hit the same. And so all of these things conflated to all happen at once. And then, oh, look, you lose your star player. Congratulations. Now you're rewarded by playing Cleveland, who we're going to talk about in a second, whooped Golden State's rear ends tonight. Like, tonight was a big game for them because Golden State's been playing really, really well. They showed on the broadcast the score was 91-55. We're going to see how that game turned out here in a second. Cleveland is really, really, really good. Dallas has some of the best top to bottom talent in the entire NBA, and Oklahoma City has been, to some people, even more heavily favored than Boston as a title contender this year. They're young, they're good, their offense is phenomenal, their defense is phenomenal. So you can't look at that 3-game stretch and say, oh man, this Magic team without Paolo is going to be horrid. The Cleveland Cavaliers took a really, really well-playing Golden State Warriors team and wiped the floor with them tonight. And I think that we actually had more of a competitive game with Cleveland in Cleveland on ESPN than they did against Golden State, right? So I think that ultimately you can't look at that 3-game sample stretch. I think that what we need to do is look at Indiana tonight and then our next game against Washington, right? Indiana's a good team. We were right there with them. We had a chance to win it. We just didn't execute. Tonight, great game against a bad team. And this is what we need to do in Paolo's absence, is win the games that we need to win. Let's go ahead and we're going to go over real quick. And we are going to look at some games from around the league. Let's go ahead and check some of these out. Kevin, we got a couple interesting things here to point out. Obviously, the Magic take care of business against the Pelicans. They improved to 4-6. The Thunder are destroying the Rockets right now. Rockets off to a 5-3 start. But in case, I think I looked, and I don't believe the Rockets have had the most challenging start to their season. So a lot of those wins came against some not great teams. So now that they're playing a team like the Thunder, maybe a little bit more like what we were expecting the Rockets to look like this year, and Thunder about to improve to 8-1. Again, shows you the type of quality of opponent that the Magic lost to the other night. Thunder aren't a fluke. They're going to win a lot of games this year. Grizzlies, no surprise there, taking care of business against the Wizards, 103-75. Nuggets, unfortunately for the hopes and dreams of Magic fans, expecting the Nuggets pick to be a 6-10 pick this year. The Nuggets have seemed to be turning it around even without a couple games without Murray and Gordon. They're up 71-60 on the Heat. So good news, bad news. Bad news is the Nuggets are winning. Good news is the Heat are losing. As always, take that. Timberwolves up 13 against the Blazers at halftime. No surprise there. Kings and Clippers just started. Lakers and Sixers. We're going to talk about the standings here in a second. But Lakers and Sixers starting 1-6 And then Maxey out. Paul George has already been injured to start the year. Joel Embiid's out here abusing members of the media. It's a mess over there in Philly. We have absolutely no idea what's going on, but I've never rejoiced in a team's downfall anymore. I was on the people are way overhyping Philly to start the year. Like, you already have one of the most injury-prone players in the league. You sign the top injury-prone free agent, and then Tyrese Maxey had 1.5 good seasons and is an unproven talent, and everyone's like top 2 team in the Eastern Conference. I never bought it. I wish that I would have had more of that in writing, because people I've talked with, they're like, yeah, you did say that, but I don't have any like tweets or texts to like go back and point out, and I'm feeling really bad about that now because it hasn't looked too great to start the year. Pistons win a nail-biter over the Hawks, 122-121. Hornets beat up on the Pacers. So this is interesting for a number of reasons. One, because we're about to play the Hornets. I don't know what this says more about, that maybe we should have had a better chance against the Pacers and taken care of business a little bit better, especially because they only dropped 83, and the Hornets do not especially have a great defense. Or does this just mean that the Hornets with LaMelo Ball are a better team than we're giving them credit for? What do you think, Kev?
We play both those teams next week, actually. We play Charlotte on Tuesday, Indiana on Wednesday, home back-to-back. So, first off, we're going to get to see how we do against Indy. Plus, we'll be at home. Still without Powell, obviously. But, yeah, the Hornets team is interesting. And, yeah, not just win by 20. They hold the Pacers to 83 points. That's
crazy.
Wild. I'm going to have to go look at some of those stats later. That's crazy.
LaMelo with a 31, 7, and 6 stat line is pretty crazy. If you can hate on LaMelo in terms of like his cockiness, but I think we're at the point where judging LaMelo for being like overrated is, you're just looking for a click. You're looking for a hot take, in my opinion. I think LaMelo is an insanely talented basketball player. And we have seen the Hornets without LaMelo and the Hornets with LaMelo, and it's just a matter of, can he stay healthy? And a healthy LaMelo with that Hornets team, LaMelo is the kind of player that immediately elevates a roster to a significantly higher level, because he's the type of player similar to a Paolo. He makes everyone around him better, and we're seeing that a little bit with the Hornets so far. I saw a lot of comments in the chat about this Suns-Mavericks game. I'm going to have to go back and watch the fourth quarter on this on League Pass, because I heard that Luka almost had a chance to have a game winner or something like that, and Suns ended up taking care of business. I'm going to have to go back and watch that one, because it seems close. Two really, really good teams. Mavericks 5-4, but I think 2 games have come down to a couple of points, so they're just as close to 7-2 as they are to 5-4. So I don't give that record, especially because we saw how they played us the other night. Speaking of another team that I rejoice in the downfall of, the Bucks are 2-7 after losing 116-94 to the New York Knicks tonight. Another team that I was telling people, did you see how this team played under Doc Rivers last year? They're really running it back with Doc Rivers, and we're giving them credit for potentially being a 52-54 win team who can finish top 3 in the Eastern Conference. Tell me where you're getting that, because I have no idea where you find that logic. I never understood it. I didn't get it. And the fact that the 2 teams that I was like, okay, if we're going to surpass any of these supposed, unanimous top 4 teams in the Eastern Conference, I said that the Bucks and Sixers were it. So far, that's looking to be the case. But again, we're only 4-6. But if we can win some of these games these next couple of weeks, I already mentioned the Cavs taking care of business against the Warriors, 10-0. The Cavaliers start the season, which is absolutely insane. Just goes to show you what difference a change in the coaching staff can make. And then Celtics almost lost to the Nets tonight. Game went into overtime. Another team that, for all the picks that I might have been right about, I think I got one wrong. I think a lot of people are going to get wrong, is I think we're not giving the Nets enough credit for how chippy this team is playing. They've already won 4 games this year. A lot of people had them in like the 15-18 win category this season. And I think that they're just going to be a team that they're not going to make noise. They're not going to go on a playoff run. But I definitely think that they're going to be a little bit better than everyone thought at the beginning of the year. Look at the updated standings here. And here's something that's encouraging. The Magic are only half a game out of 5th place in the Eastern Conference. We're only a full game out of 3rd place in the Eastern Conference. And this is something that I want to touch on for a second. I'm not going to stay on the screen for too long. But kind of want to finish up with this tonight, Kevin. The best thing that we have going for us, the Magic, is the fact that for how rough we have started in Paolo's absence, the Eastern Conference has had equally as rough of a start. You have, the third seed in the Eastern Conference is currently sitting at, let me check here again one more time. The third seed Knicks are 4-4 currently, right? This is exactly what we needed, right? We needed the top 5 teams in the Eastern Conference not to all be 9-1 right now, and they aren't. Because we've seen in the past how much of a difficulty, how much of a struggle it can be kind of clawing from behind. And we've talked about in the podcast all offseason about, games in October, games in November matter just as much as games in April. And that goes both ways for teams around you winning and you losing, or you losing games and the teams around you also losing. And I think that is really important for this team right now, is the fact that everyone else around us in the Eastern Conference is struggling. And the good news for us is that the Bucks aren't struggling because of injury, right? They're just struggling. They're not 2-7. You can look at the Sixers and say, oh, well, they've been out without some of their best players, but the Bucks are just 2-7 straight up. And I think that is good news for us because we're only a game out of third place. Win some of these games in November coming up. Joe says winning streak coming. All right. What do you think about the next couple of games? What do you think about the Wizards on Sunday night?
Yeah, you got to beat the Wizards. Jonathan and I, before the season, we projected our Eastern Conference. I had the Wizards at the bottom. And if you take away the Sixers injuries and you take away the Bucks just mess, they'd be at the bottom basically with the Toronto Raptors. Well, the Raptors are there because of injury too, in part because of, Scotty Barnes' injury. So I think the Wizards are pretty bad. You're at home. You got to win that game. And then next week is very interesting because you're getting into the Cup on Tuesday against Charlotte, then Wednesday back-to-back against the same Indiana Pacers like we just talked about, and then the Sixers on Friday for another NBA Cup game. So you got 2 NBA Cup games. Those are important. You got the Pacers on a back-to-back. That's always tough. So it's going to be interesting. I think the Magic can do well. Again, it's a relatively favorable list of teams considering what they've just been through, and so I'd like to think that a win streak is coming. Yeah, it's got to be at least a 3-game win streak. If you lose on the second night of a back-to-back to the Pacers, I'll be upset, but I'll understand. 3 games in 4 nights, all that stuff. But you got to at least win this, obviously, tonight, Washington on Sunday, and Charlotte on Tuesday. Yeah,
I agree. I think ultimately we're going to see where this team is at. I think that you have to finish 2 or 3 games over 500 heading into that December gauntlet. If you don't want to be, sitting 7 games under 500 when Paolo gets back. We've mentioned it before. This team just needs to tread water. We're not expecting them to go on 7, 8, 9 game win streaks without Paolo. The games aren't going to look pretty. Tonight didn't look pretty at times, but just get wins, right? We're not expecting them to be pretty. We're not expecting them to be great. We need Franz to step up. We need Jalen to step up. Kevin, you got any more comments before we finish up tonight?
Not a thing, man. This has been fun. Again, obviously glad to get a win. That's all you can ask for on a night like tonight.
Absolutely. Back in the win column. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Your Magic take care of business against the Pelicans, 115-88. Remember, we are presented by Rock'em Socks. Use code MAGIC20 for 20% off. I'm going to be back with you guys running solo for the first time on Sunday night against the Washington Wizards. Looking forward to that game. Love one another, man. Let's just appreciate this season. Come on. See you guys back on Sunday, and let's go Magic.